she's just evil. Like, there's nothing like her.
Why would she even tweet that? Like, don't you have
I think she just sits around in her evil lair whenever she runs out of Eye of Newt and Small Children to Boil.
Hillary Clinton is one of the most disgusting human beings on the planet.
Very much so.
Always has been, always will be, and will be inserting clips on her response to Benghazi several times throughout the interview. I want to show who she is.
Hillary Clinton is back in the spotlight. And this time, the person doing the talking is not a foreign journalist or a political rival. It is Tyrus, former professional wrestler turned razor-sharp political commentator. And he is not holding back even slightly. Tyrus has swung open Hillary's closet doors wide, and what is inside is not sitting quietly in the shadows. It is practically dancing out into the open. This is not a gentle roast. This is a full-scale dismantling and aimed directly at the glaring contradictions that have defined Hillary Clinton's entire public career. Because what is coming feels far less like political commentary and far more like a complete systematic takedown.
Every time she talks, you kind of get why Bill did what he did. You know what I'm saying? Like, like, it's kind of like, again, I don't condone, cheating, but that's your morning.
Yeah.
You gotta kiss that before you go to bed at night, and then you gotta sleep with one eye open.
Yeah.
Because your buddy Epstein didn't off himself, and she has all this extra footage cut up in the closet. Like,
Hillary Clinton has always walked into the American political arena as though she personally owns the entire building, backed by a resume so extensive it could double as a CVS receipt. And yet, after decades of influence, staggering amounts of money, and some of the deepest insider connections in Washington, she still has not managed to fully convince the public that she is the person they actually want leading them. It is almost impressive in the most painful way imaginable, like the kid in gym class who insists they are the star player, then stumbles during the warm-up drill before the game even begins.
We hear things that we find so fundamentally hard to believe. I mean, I'm in that category. People say things like, oh, that could never happen. But having been a close observer now for quite a number of years of our current president, you have to suspend your disbelief. And you have to do two things simultaneously. You have to both listen to what he says, because he often telegraphs.
This is the same woman who lost to Donald Trump. Yes, that Donald Trump. That was not simply a defeat. That was one of the most stunning political collapses in modern American history. Imagine spending years painstakingly polishing your public image, securing donors from Wall Street to Silicon Valley, and assembling what appeared to be the most formidable campaign machine in modern politics, only to stumble at the absolute finish line because your campaign could not be bothered to show up in Wisconsin. Stunning does not even begin to cover what happened.
They wanted us to believe it was a big naughty redhead that was going around, was going to ruin the world and do all kinds of bad things to us. Turns out the catfish was, hey, we don't boo here, but for this one time you may boo.
But Hillary's most persistent problem has always been the breathtaking scale of her own contradictions. She positioned herself as a passionate champion of the working class, while quietly collecting $225,000 checks for private speeches delivered behind closed doors to Goldman Sachs executives. That is not relatable. That is not even in the same zip code as relatable. It is the equivalent of showing up to a neighborhood barbecue dressed head to toe in designer labels and announcing with complete sincerity that you fully understand the everyday struggle. The disconnect could not have been more visible or more damaging.
An apology tour for lying to the American people and ruining 2 years of Trump's presidency and affecting elections with Russiagate, impeachment, and fake dossiers. Oh yeah, let's not forget the P-tape. Turns out it was the Democrats and the lefty media peeing down our backs and telling it was rain.
Her political instincts, if they can genuinely be called that, have consistently functioned like a broken GPS, the kind that confidently instructs you to turn left directly into a river. From healthcare to foreign policy, Hillary repeatedly chose the wrong direction, only to quietly reverse course once polling data made the safer position feel politically acceptable. That is not leadership. That is hesitation dressed up as evolution, and voters noticed that distinction every single time, without fail.
Was the most unlikable candidate in the history of presidents, and that's saying a lot.
But Biden says the same thing.
He's number 2. When Biden says something, does anyone be like, oh?
Right.
No, they used to go, oh.
And then, of course, the emails. The story that simply refused to disappear. Hillary's private server felt about as secure as a forgotten teenage blog account left open on a public computer, yet the public was somehow expected to treat it as a minor administrative footnote. This was not misplacing a personal diary. This was the Secretary of State of the United States handling deeply sensitive national security information on a setup that appeared shockingly easy to compromise. Add Benghazi to the equation, and what you have is a pair of controversies that became permanent symbols of catastrophically poor judgment. Her 2016 campaign was supposed to be a coronation. Instead, it became a masterclass in exactly what not to do in modern politics.
Dealing with the Hillary Clinton emails from a couple years ago saying how she should be in jail and all this other stuff. And it's just point to point to point to point exactly what just happened, proving once and for all it had absolutely nothing to do with Hillary Clinton's emails. It had everything to do with attacking Hillary Clinton, and these people are just so desperate for it that that's what they went for. And of course the hypocrisy is just out on stage for everybody to see.
When it all fell apart, the explanations arrived in an absolute flood. Russia, Facebook, James Comey, Bernie supporters, sexism, virtually everything and everyone received a portion of the blame, except the person who actually ran the campaign and made the decisions that defined it. The truth is, Hillary's loss was not a grand political conspiracy executed against her. It was a reality check that had been quietly accumulating for years. Tyrus made exactly that point, and it landed harder than most people were prepared to honestly admit.
People were reluctant to talk to pollsters and say, I like Donald Trump. And now, fast forward 8 years later, essentially they're saying, if you like him, you're in a cult. Do you really want to be in a cult?
If the cult that Hillary doesn't like, yeah, sign me in. What do I need? Is it a red hat? When the losing side, or someone, she's just a very unlikable person and will say anything to get this attention. But here's the thing, it's changed. America has changed. We no longer listen to that stuff. Now when they say it, we go, that's why I didn't vote.
Her time as Secretary of State was not much smoother. She logged more miles than a platinum tier frequent flyer, boasting about visiting over 100 countries. But traveling extensively does not automatically mean you mastered foreign policy. It simply makes you a remarkably expensive tourist with access to a government aircraft. Her attempts to connect with younger voters were, to put it as generously as possible, deeply uncomfortable to witness. Watching Hillary attempt to charm millennials was like watching Windows 95 attempt a TikTok trend. Painfully confused, visibly forced, and arriving several years too late to matter.
Her logic makes no sense, but why would she say it? You know, I mean, we can't just keep saying TDS. It's something else. It is, I think I think they're ego damaged people.
Yeah.
Right? Doesn't make any sense.
Look, she was going to be the first woman president.
Yes.
And who is
Here is the truly fascinating part. She had every conceivable advantage stacked in her favor. Money, power, name recognition that most politicians spend entire careers trying to build, and decades of experience operating at the absolute highest levels of government. And yet people still did not trust her. She ended up feeling less like a genuine leader and more like a political algorithm, mechanically reciting focus group approved lines on perfect cue. Add the accumulated weight of the Clinton family's long public history, and her so-called inevitability began to feel far less like destiny, and far more like assumed entitlement. Americans have never responded well to being told who they are supposed to follow. That has never changed.
Woman should be in jail. Literally, Hillary Clinton should be behind bars. And so should the people who worked for her who did this. This is so blatantly corrupt. She wanted to distract from her email scandal. She cooked up a plan to accuse Trump of being a Russian agent in order to distract from her own legitimate scandal. She made up a scandal about Trump being a Russian.
But if Hillary Clinton is anything, she is resilient. She has weathered more scandals than most politicians could survive across an entire career. Whitewater, Travelgate, Benghazi, the emails, any single one of those controversies could have permanently ended someone else's time in public life. Yet Hillary kept moving forward, chin raised, as though sheer persistence would eventually deliver the historic crown that her entire trajectory seemed to promise. But over time, that relentless forward motion began to feel less like genuine determination and more like mechanical routine, leaving behind a legacy defined not by meaningful progress, but by a widening and very visible distance from the very people she spent decades claiming to represent.
Greatest achievement Trump ever did when they read the history books. It'll be like, maybe there'll be these wars will be solved and economy, but then there'll be a two-page spread on how he beat Hillary and how that will always be. He'll be on Mount Rushmore for that. You know? they should do like called a Mount Trump, where they have the heads of the people he beat. So they've already got Hillary, and they got Kamala, and then maybe he can run again. You know, we still don't know, right?
One of his best lines ever was when he was first elected, and the people around him said, "We got to go for Hillary now. Lock her up." And he said, "Nah, just let it go. She lost. She's going to have to live with it."
In the end, Hillary Clinton wanted history to remember her as a trailblazer, a fighter, the woman who finally shattered the ultimate glass ceiling and claimed the presidency that had eluded every woman before her. Instead, she is remembered primarily as the woman who lost to Donald Trump. After every battle endured, every scandal survived, every speech delivered, and every carefully managed public appearance, it comes down to one single, unforgiving truth. She believed with absolute certainty that she would be president. She believed she deserved to be president. And in the end, she was not.
This sort of haggard old woman. I ran against her in 2006 for the Senate. She was riding high. She was going to be the first woman president. The world was at her feet. And now look at her.
Yeah, is that the greatest?
I mean, you don't even want to look at her.
The greatest achievement Trump ever did when they read the history books. It'll be like, maybe there'll be these wars will be solved and economy, but then there'll be a two-page spread on how he beat Hillary and how that will always be. He'll be on Mount Rushmore.
The basket of deplorables comment did not merely damage Hillary Clinton's campaign, it buried a significant portion of it alive. It stands as one of the most jaw-dropping examples in modern political history of a candidate personally handing their opponents a loaded weapon, then appearing completely blindsided when it was fired straight back at them. Every single time Hillary attempted to take ownership of her own story and carefully shape the narrative around her campaign, she ended up cementing the exact image she was working relentlessly to escape. Cold, disconnected, elite, someone operating from a throne of assumed superiority rather than genuinely earned trust. And here is where the deep, almost painful irony lives. She probably would have been a remarkably capable president in many technical respects, detail-obsessed, policy-literate to a degree most politicians could never dream of matching, disciplined, prepared, and relentlessly organized, on paper. Formidable, but voters do not walk into polling booths searching for the most technically qualified person in the room. They walk in searching for someone they can actually believe in, someone who makes them feel seen, heard, and genuinely represented. Hillary Clinton never fully cracked that code, not when it mattered most. So what is actually left when everything gets tallied up? Honestly, a tragedy of almost Shakespearean proportions. And the most devastating part is that it was not written by her enemies. It was written decision by decision across decades, largely by her own hand. She had the ambition, she had the resources, the connections, the machine, and the iron-willed drive that most politicians spend entire careers desperately trying to build. What she never fully possessed, what no amount of preparation or strategy could manufacture, was the raw, genuine human connection that transforms a political candidate into a leader people choose to follow with real enthusiasm, not reluctant obligation, not holding their nose voting, actual enthusiasm. She wanted the position more than almost anyone in American political history. She simply never mastered how to win the people, and that gap, that specific, decisive, and ultimately fatal gap, is more damaging to her legacy than any individual scandal, any single devastating headline, or any one catastrophic moment on the campaign trail. Because history is not kind to almost. History does not erect monuments to the person who was supposed to win. History will remember Hillary Clinton not as the first female president of the United States. The role she spent a lifetime time positioning herself to claim. But as the most famous almost in American political history, the most anticipated, most prepared, most inevitable candidate who never crossed the finish line, she did not shatter the glass ceiling. In the most brutally ironic twist imaginable, she became it. Unbreakable, completely transparent, and standing directly in the path of anyone else attempting to push through the same space she occupied and guarded for so long. And perhaps that is Hillary Clinton's most enduring legacy. Not a historic victory, not a transformational presidency, but a permanent and sobering reminder etched into the foundation of American politics that inevitability is not a campaign strategy, that entitlement is not a leadership qualification, that a resume, no matter how impressive, cannot substitute for genuine human connection, and that even the most relentless decades-long climb, fueled by ambition, intelligence, and sheer unstoppable determination, can still end in a fall so loud, so stunning, and so complete that it echoes through history for a very, very long time.